Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF podcast. Yes, that is right. It is Monday morning. I don't even know what date it is. It's 10:06 a.m. Eastern time, the only legitimate time zone. My name is Rob Dauster. I have with me today Terrence Oglesby and John Fanta, who's coming to you live from a hotel in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And there's no Michigan games going on. Fanta, what are you doing? What's going on here?
Well, I'm about an hour away from East Lansing to make it over to Michigan State today as we're
I didn't know it was that close. It's an hour?
Yeah. I actually found this out as well as I was doing the drive from Cincinnati on the way to East Lansing. Had After Dark last night, and we had an 8 o'clock Eastern time show. So I got the car about as far as I could get it, and Ann Arbor was the tipping off point. So got here. We did the show on Sunday night with Megan McEwen and Randolph Childress. A fun show. Got some rest. And we'll complete the drive off of our pod for a 2:30 Eastern time showdown as we're talking between number 3 Purdue and the Michigan State Spartans. So heading to the MLK game of the day, and it comes in the Big Ten. And it'll be interesting to see how Michigan State, how they plan to guard Zach Edey, because at Big Ten Media Day, fellas, Tom Izzo said the only person who could guard Zach Edey is God.
Look, his name is Shaq Edey. Okay, he goes by Shaq Edey around these parts.
God,
that's back-to-back games.
God does have a long wingspan. God does have a long wingspan.
That's back-to-back games of the day for you, Fanta. We are going to get into that because we got to talk about what happened at the top of the Big East. But before we do, look, I want to open up the floor here. All right, I want to go to T.O. and look, Fanta, me and you. What do you say on broadcast when you just lay out? Me and you just got to lay out and let the man who reps first place Clemson. Clemson is sitting at 7-0, 2 games in front of literally everybody else in the ACC. The ACC is wild, right? The ACC is wild this year because I'm going to bring up the standings.
It's not wild. There's stability at the top. There's been one first place team the whole time.
Look, if you would have told me back in October that as of January, whatever today is, January 14th, that Clemson was sitting in first place in the ACC, 2 games in front of Syracuse, Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami, and Virginia, I would have slapped you upside your head and I would have told you to get off the meth. T.O., what is happening off the meth? What is happening right now? Why is Clemson so good? I think RC said it last night, right, Fanta, that a coach has told him the best team he's seen in the ACC has been Clemson. How did they figure this out? What is happening down there in South Carolina? And is this for real? I think it is.
It is for real because they just mix guys up, and we talked about it last week, guys. Like Chase Hunter moving, and now he wasn't very good yesterday. He was only 1 of 10, but he adds another element of athleticism that they haven't had in the other last few seasons. And he's bigger. They defend better, and defensively, this team is going to be able to compete. Like their defensive metrics aren't great on Kim Palm and all that stuff, but at the same time, they guard from game to game, and how they guard is different from game to game. So it's going to be.
Let me stop you right there. Do you know in ACC play who the best defensive team in the conference is?
The what?
In ACC play, in conference play, who's the best defensive team in the league?
Probably Clemson.
The Clemson Tigers. So they do defend.
They do, but some of their metrics from early in the season, like when they played South Carolina and laid an egg, when they played Loyola Chicago and laid an egg, like if they just take care of business on those, we're talking about Clemson being a top 15, top 10, top 15 team in the country. Which, to be honest with you guys, they're definitely a top 25 team in the country, and they guard. They're big. The health of PJ at the beginning of the season, PJ was still coming back and he was on a minutes restriction. He was right at 18 to 22 minutes a game. That was a sweet spot for the first 10 games of the season. Now they've upped his workload. He's been really good. He's up for ACC Player of the Week this week after going for 26-4 against a Duke team with a really big front line. So they just continue. It's somebody different every night, and they've decided to go really big with Hunter Tyson playing the 3 as opposed to the 4, and he's been effective there. So it's been an interesting thing to see. Brevin Galloway on Saturday, like this is a guy who transferred from Boston College, and they didn't get a whole lot out of it at Boston College. And he's found his rhythm at Clemson, but it seems to be somebody different on a night-to-night basis.
Mm-hmm. Fanta, what do you make of the Tigers?
Well, it's kind of remarkable, and it shows how the way that the ball bounces can end up leading you to one way or another on the marathon of college basketball. I mean, you think about where this team sat in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, double overtime thriller against Penn State, and they find a way to win. And that's something that this team's done. I mean, they did it against Pittsburgh. They did it against Virginia Tech. Those two games were decided by a combined 4 points. Mm-hmm. So, tell you what, for a team that lost December 10th by 18 to Loyola Chicago, who is in a down year, frankly, the Ramblers are not what they've been, to then run off 7 straight wins, they've got balanced scoring. They showed on Saturday night against Duke how they could dig in. I mean, you're down at the half to Duke, and Duke played a very solid first 20 minutes in that game. Kyle Filipowski, once again, just stepping up and making things happen. But the way that Clemson fought back, I mean, I think at one point in that second half, they were down by 6 again. It's like you're at that point where the game could swing in a different direction. We know Duke, as much as Duke has had some injuries and has been kind of up and down, like that's a position where when Duke goes up 6, Duke's very good defensively on their best day. And Clemson, with a home crowd behind him, but Clemson still was able to fight right back. And I think it just showed, whether it was Galloway, who stepped up with some timely shots and came up huge for his team, that sort of sums up this group, is that you don't necessarily know where it's going to come from. And I think that PJ Hall showed us all on Saturday night why he's thought of as an all-conference player on his best day. And
on his best day. This season, like, it's been hard to make that case because he's been on a minutes restriction. It's hard for him to kind of get things going. And then finally, it's like the lid popped off one day. But he works hard. But the guy who really, I'm going to be honest, guys, and obviously, you pay attention to your alma mater. But, like, Hunter Tyson has changed the trajectory of this team. Like, he's always been solid, but there's a graphic of his year-to-year improvement. And, like, every single season, he's bigger in points, he's bigger in rebounds. And then this year, he's talking a whole lot of cash shit. It is something that's developed out of nowhere. This wasn't the kind of dude he was, but he realized, hey, this is my last year in college. Am I going to be able to go to the tournament? And not only are they going to be able to go to the tournament, if they keep playing like this, like, they're going to have a good seed. Like, so there's a lot to play for a young man who has worked his butt off and continued to improve. And it's his last year, and he's become a vocal leader, which hasn't really been the case since he got to Clemson. Now it's flipped on its head. So that it's fun to watch. It's interesting to watch. Hunter's a good dude.
It's going to be interesting to see where they end up getting seated, because if you look at their resume right now, they are 15-3, but their best win is a down Duke team, right? They beat Penn State in double overtime, which Penn State will probably end up being a tournament team. But beyond that, like, who are you looking at here? And you're saying, okay, that is a great win.
A smacking of NC State. That was NC a shellacking.
That's a good win at Virginia Tech. That win probably looks better on paper than it is right now, just because Virginia Tech's been kind of banged up. But
a 20-point slacking of Wake Forest, which I also think is a tournament team, believe it or not.
Yeah, but the none of those teams look great in the metrics, and so that's going to be the interesting thing. But I will say this: if you look at the rest of their schedule, they play 13 more games in the ACC. 6 of those games are against teams that are outside the top 100 on Ken Pom.
Right.
There's only 2 games against teams that you would look at and you would say, okay, I don't know if they can get that one. At North Carolina is going to be tough. At Virginia is going to be tough. And even
we've won one game at North Carolina in history. One.
Yes. And that was
a couple years ago.
It's not going to be easy. So, like, there's probably 3 losses there that you can kind of pencil in and say, I'm not going to be surprised if they take them. But beyond that, like, Clemson could really go 17-3 in the ACC this year.
I would shit. I
think they're this year's.
You would shit where? You would just shit your pants?
Just wherever I was at that moment.
I'm going to stay very far away from you on any.
I could
Saturday,
be standing
March
straight
4th.
up.
I'll tell you what. I think
That's got to be hard. Have you ever tried shitting while you're
No, I
sitting?
haven't. But we're losing the point. Go Fant.
I think that they're this year's Providence. I really do. I mean, I think that they're
That's
the
a good call.
They're the program that people are going to look at. Probably, I'll tell you what. Some casual fans are going to be like, Clemson, really, Clemson? But it's like these guys know how to win, and they've got a veteran core that defends and that makes closing plays. They did it against Duke, and that figures out ways to get it done. And it also is a reflection on college basketball and coaches and a broader discussion of like, it's not like Brad Brownell just learned something suddenly this year. He has the right group of guys that are connected, and in a year where they really need to win and he needs to get it done, maybe that's when he's at his best because
there's nobody better. Jeff had a tweet the other day. Nobody's better on the hot seat than Brad Brownell. He coaches different. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I've been to a couple of coaches. I've been to a couple of practices. Like there's a different level of intensity. Like I remember my first year back, they had Gabe DeVoe and Dante Grantham, and like there was a certain like intensity about it. And then the next year, it was like we're good, but we have some holes. This year, like I've been back to practice. It reminded me of the practices back my first year back. Like the coaching was hard. It was quick. It was to the point. If you didn't do it, get the hell out of the way. I'm not going. I can't spend that much time on you. So
that's funny. It's like the contract.
I gotta be careful there, right? But I gotta be careful.
But no, for real, it's like a contract year, right?
It is a contract year. But I live 2 streets away from Brad too, so I gotta be careful.
Oh yeah,
I gotta be careful.
I think the last
you're gonna wake up. He's gonna be pounding on your door like, T.O., go take a shit, buddy.
T.O., fuck, man, fuck.
You have to throw me under the bus.
That's Brad. Fuck, T.O., fuck. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Last thing I would say is I think that when you look at it, there's some teams in the ACC who have stepped up and are allowing this league to be a potential. I mean, they're in a place to get 6 teams in the NCAA tournament. Which, look, the ACC in the regular season has some more storylines and more layers than it did this time last year. And I think that the league's got some solid teams. So it's interesting to see how some programs have emerged. I will say this. I think Clemson takes their first ACC loss Tuesday night at Wake Forest.
I could see it.
That's a tough one. That's a tough place to play too, and they'll be fired up.
Yes, they will be. Fan, I want to circle back on something that you said earlier. You said that you think Clemson is this year's Providence. I actually was going to compare Providence to somebody else this year, and I was going to go with Rutgers. I feel like Rutgers is this year's Providence because if you go through and you look at some of the wins that they've had of late, right? They won at Purdue by a point. They smacked around Maryland a little bit, but everybody smacks around Maryland. They won at Northwestern by 3, which is actually, believe it or not, a good win this year. They beat Ohio State by 4 in overtime at home. Those are the 3 of their last 4 Big Ten wins. And it just feels like they are the team that knows exactly who they are this year, that has the point guard play to be able to handle those moments, that has the leadership both on the sideline and on the floor to be able to understand what they're trying to do in clutch moments, and has that level of belief, right? Like I don't necessarily know if there's like a clutch gene that people have, but I think that there are certain players and certain human beings that have the confidence and the belief and the ability to handle pressure and understand that they're going to go make a play in a big moment. And there's certain teams, UConn, that may not be able to handle that kind of a pressure. And to me, Providence last year was a great example of that. And I think Rutgers this year is a great example of that. What do you think?
I think you're right. And I think it's ironic. It's a UConn guy, Steve Peichel, who's leading Rutgers and who's led them into historic heights. I mean, I don't think people understand, like, Rutgers has never been to 3 consecutive NCAA tournaments. It's never happened in the history of the program. They've never been known to string together season after season of winning. This program lost Geo Baker and Ron Harper Jr. They have a Loyola, Maryland transfer right now named Cam Spencer, who has
balled.
Mm-hmm.
Big shot Cam. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
Been fantastic. And they're just so bought in from an identity perspective, and that's why the Providence comp is good, because that's what Ed Cooley's teams do. They buy into who they are, and I think Rutgers does too. It's not pretty, it's not flashy, but I'm going to tell you what, I was putting together a top 15 today. Guys, I honestly, right now, putting together a top 15, like, just stop at like 7. I don't know. I mean, everyone's losing. I put Rutgers in it. They've won 7 of their last 8 games, and they know how to win. They know how to win. And at a certain point, we've got to credit the teams who are doing that. Not the teams who are having big letdowns and losing games by double digits and don't even look like themselves. Like, no, I'm not just going to keep putting you in rankings because I think you're really good on your best day. No, if you lose, you lose. And for Rutgers, they are figuring out ways to win continually. Paul Mulcahy is a terrific creator. He's a defender. He plays tough. Caleb McConnell's one of the best 5 defenders in America, and one of maybe the best 2 or 3, if he's not the best. Cliff Amori he's the guy who allows for Rutgers to just provide the grit and the toughness on the interior that you need in the Big Ten, and Omori's taking a big leap. Mawat Mag comes up with a big-time shot in the win over Ohio State. Rutgers has it. They've got a grit factor, a toughness factor that will allow them in the NCAA tournament to be in any game. They're not getting blown out because they defend. They're a real dangerous.
RC made a great point last night on After Dark. Like, they have a lot of Virginia in them too, because they're going to do what they do. They're going to play at their pace, and they're going to make you play their way, and they're going to guard you. And you got to find a way to play at their pace. One point I want to make to you, and then I'll let you go. When they lost to Temple on the neutral floor earlier this season, they did not have Paul Mulcahy, who has been arguably the best point guard in the Big Ten. They did not have Caleb McConnell. When they lost at Miami by 7, they did not have Paul Mulcahy. They lost at Ohio State by 1, and then I think the only, like, air quotes here, bad loss on the resume at this point is Seton Hall Seton Hall at home, and like, that's a rivalry game. You can't say anything about a rivalry game.
And what is that, a quadrant 2 loss?
Yeah, it's not even a bad loss. Like, it just they're only really.
All right, so I'm going to pocket that what you just said. That rivalry game thing. I'm going to pocket that because for later in the show, I have a feeling we're going to be able to use it again. Anything could happen in a rivalry game. We're going to be able to use that again later.
So look, you know what, T.O., you're good.
You can't use it in one place and not use it in another place.
You don't have to rep Tennessee today. You're Clemson today, baby.
Hey, look, I'm going to pocket that, and I'm just going to use it later. So,
can UConn and St. John's be a rivalry game? Can we call that a rivalry game too?
What?
Sure.
Yeah, can we call that a rivalry game? Yeah, I'm going to use that one also. I'm sorry. Go ahead, T.O.
Which one?
I'm off the walls today.
He's off the radar. Can't find him. No, they guard. That's Steve Michael's teams have always guarded, but now they've got Mulcahy is kind of their decision maker. Whenever they're good, he's kind of orchestrating everything. And you need a big shot maker at the end. And Killer Cam, like, he's at a couple, and they haven't necessarily been easy. Like, shot fake into it, one dribble, threes. Like, he's a tough kid. He's a Peichel kind of kid. And Steve Peichel, as tough as they are defensively, they have kind of figured out how to at least manufacture shots. Now, are they making a ton of them? No, but they kind of know where they can get them. They're not very good offensively. I mean, they're just not. So I think that's kind of the huge thing where they 117th in KenPom, but like it's the defense holds you up and it keeps you in games. And that is a constant with anytime you play a Rutgers team.
Yep.
Well, for what it's worth, too, they got a 5-star commit after the win yesterday. Arius Bailey, who's in the 2024 class, a 5-star forward. A number of big-time schools were in the mix. He committed in the locker room in Piscataway after the game yesterday. Wow. I mean, that's the highest-rated recruit in Rutgers basketball history. And
Amori was a 5-star kid, wasn't he?
Bailey is the highest-ranked recruit. Yeah, by a significant margin.
Yeah, this kid is top 10. Amori was a 5-star. It was a really good prospect, but this
top
kid is
20 or something.
I mean, Rutgers just got a top 10 recruit, guys. And
Rutgers.
Bring them to the rack, and they will come.
That's not NIL. Like they don't. That's not in New Jersey. That's not NIL. Not.
It's wild. Like, just think about everything that's going on in college basketball this year, and we opened up today's Monday Overreactions podcast talking about Clemson and Rutgers, and it wasn't even forced. Like, this wasn't something where we had to sit here and say,
Oh.
you know what, we got to find a way to talk about new teams. Like, they have legitimately played themselves into the national conference. Rutgers is 14th on KenPom.
Yeah.
14th. It's wild, man.
It also is a reflection of the sport and the climate in college basketball. The playing field has leveled.
Yeah, it certainly has. The extra year has helped too.
Yes.
The extra year, the talent discrepancy because of that extra year from top to bottom isn't as huge a gap, right? Because look at Pikel and look at Brad, like Brad Brownell. They hang on to guys and they develop them year after year.
Yeah, it makes you feel really bad for blue bloods. I mean, just
horrible. I feel horrible for all those blue bloods.
Poor dude, like going on the road and losing at Clemson. Like, those poor guys. Poor North Carolina. You know,
yeah, poor North Carolina. They don't get enough 5-star recruits.
Poor Kentucky. All right, let's talk about Kentucky. It's a perfect transition into the blue bloods. I believe, I can't remember exactly what we said, but when we said
Kentucky is back.
Yeah, when we said
Kentucky is back.
It was on the last podcast. We were like, Kentucky is going to go on the road and they're going to play at Tennessee, and who knows, maybe they'll win. And then we all started laughing when we said,
"Oh, you two started laughing."
And Kentucky could win at Tennessee, and we were like,
"That was
happening. There's no way Kentucky's winning at Tennessee." And you know what? They went into Tennessee, and they kind of kicked some volunteer ass just a little bit. Now,
they did.
There is one point that I want to make, because
rivalry lineup,
the rivalry game stuff matters, and we'll kind of get into all that, but Xavier Wheeler did not play, T.O.
That's huge.
And without Xavier Wheeler on the floor and with no Damian Collins, Calipari was forced to go to a lineup that had a banged up Case and Wallace at the point, Antonio Reeves, CJ Frederick, Jacob Toppin, and Oscar Tshiebwe, right? That lineup outscored Tennessee 29-14 on Saturday. Heading into the game, that lineup had only played 20 possessions together. I'm getting all this data from Evan Miyakawa, evanmaya.com. Great analytics site. And in 20 possessions this season, their adjusted efficiency margin was 107.5, which is so large. Like, just to put that in comparison, that's literally like saying a dude averaged 100 points a game. Like, that number just doesn't happen. An efficiency margin better than most teams' adjusted offensive efficiency number is absolutely insane. So
yep.
I asked
Case and Wallace couldn't move.
Yeah, and he was banged. He looked like me with a thrown out back, dude. Like, you could see how much he was hurting. So I asked you, T.O., is this the gift that Coach Cal needed? Did this shine a light on him that said, we need to play Case and Wallace with two shooters and a four-man that can at least kind of pretend to space it a little bit? Is he going to see the light? Are we going to see more of this lineup from John Calipari?
I don't know. Did you watch the post-game presser?
I did.
I think it has more to do with Calipari taking away their computers and their cell phones. Come on, man. Like, you were forced to put the right guys on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You were forced to put the right guys on the floor. And guys, sometimes that's how that works. Like, you stumble on some of these things by accident. And really, I like Xavier Wheeler as a player. I think there's certainly a role for him on that team. It's as an energy guy off the bench, where you need a quick change of pace for 10 to 12 minutes. That's where his role should be. Case and Wallace should be running that team. And then you need Antonio Reeves and CJ on the wings. Jacob Toppin, I'm halfway sold on him, but like, if he can moderately space the floor, like, that's your lineup. And then once Case and Wallace is healthy enough to put some rim pressure on there for you, that's your lineup. So it's a team that's good. It's a team that's tough. And I'll be honest with you, man. Oscar Tshiebwe impressed me a little bit because he was able to put up with Uros Plavsic, like, just hacking and fouling. And he might be the biggest 7'2" irritant I've ever seen. Like, he goes in there, he plays hard, but he's a walking
cheap shots. Like, there's elbows.
He's a walking flagrant foul.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he is. And I get it. Like, that's your role, but he takes it too far, in my opinion.
Sometimes, yes. But to see, the big thing for me, Fanta, was that Kentucky. So there was two things. One, they dealt with all of that, and they never lost their composure, right? We're going to get into a team that lost their composure, couldn't handle a little bit of shit talking in a little bit here, but they never lost that composure. They also dug themselves an 8-point hole, and it was the kind of thing where, like, we were texting it, man. We were texting, like, they're going to lose by 40. They're going to get run out of this gym, and they fought back. Like, they didn't roll over and die. That, to me, that was the impressive part about this team. Like, I was concerned, John, that that Cal had lost this locker room, I'm not concerned that he's lost that locker. There's fight there. They still want it.
Rivalry game.
Rivalry game.
Rivalry game. Like they played Georgia next at home. Last time they played at home, they lost South Carolina.
Here's the thing. Oscar Tshiebwe took it upon himself early in the game to say, you know what? I'm tired of this. I am sick and tired of this. If you were watching the game, you saw him hit a couple of shots, and they would show his face or his emotion off of it. And you got to give Tshiebwe a lot of credit because he's the guy who, during this losing spell, he even said it at one point in a post-game press conference, that he's just trying to get his guys to understand the magnitude and everything that they're going through, and that he's the leader and that he can be that guy. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that from Oscar Tshiebwe. I thought he took ownership on Saturday. Here's the deal. They found a lineup that defensively can impact the game. They got stops. Now, I'm going to get to that, to Tennessee in a moment. And Antonio Reeves gave them 18 points. I mean, they found a way to get scoring from Antonio Reeves and C.J. Frederick. The problem is that hasn't happened, not just on an every game basis, but like on an every 2 or 3 game basis. It just hasn't occurred. So as much as I thought that they found something defensively, and the biggest takeaway is that the fight came out of this group. On at least one day, we saw why we've been so hard on them. The reason why we've been so hard on them is because you think in your head, well, they should be able to be competitive with Tennessee. They weren't just competitive. They really dictated much of the game, shorthanded. So that's why we've been as harsh as we've been on you, Kentucky, because we think highly of you, but you have totally underperformed. I don't think that this group unveiled anything offensively on Saturday. I think they also caught Tennessee on the right day.
Yes.
I
mean, the fact is, Zakai Ziegler and Santiago Vescovi combined to shoot 7 for 25.
How many layups did Zakai miss?
Oh,
like 17, man.
Josiah Jordan James went 2 for 8 from the floor and 1 for 6 from 3. Josiah, you went 1 for 6 from 3. Stop shooting after you take 3 threes. That's enough. Tennessee, I don't trust. I haven't trusted. I can't trust. I don't trust their upside. I think that they, once again, will be a first weekend disappointment in the NCAA tournament.
I'm upset because, like, how many times do you put the ball in Vescovi's hands at the end and, like, he can't create anything?
Yep.
And they just keep freaking doing it. They keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it. Eventually, it's got to be like, hey, guys, like, let's try something else.
In big spots.
In big spots. And guys, I know he's my guy. Julian Phillips took 2 freaking shots. He's the guy that can get somewhere.
Wasn't he in foul trouble? He was in foul trouble a little bit, right?
I don't care. 2 shots.
Yes.
2 shots in 18 minutes. 2 shots.
I was going to ask you about him. Like, what is going on? Is that just
he's not a kid who's going to take it upon himself and just go outside the offense. You got to call something for him. Mm-hmm. He's your guy. He's the guy that can get to the foul line. He's your guy that can make something happen. He's the guy with the explosiveness to get somewhere. If you bring in a 5-star kid, a top 20 kid, and you got him out there with a bunch of really good college players, your 5-star kid's the one at the end of January that's supposed to be making something happen for you. Like, this is the time where you start calling plays for them. And they just don't. It's alarming to me that we're still going to Vescovi. Like, it's like, because not because he's a bad player, but because he can't get anywhere. Like, if you take away his shot, he can't get anywhere.
His role, if you use him as a spacer and a guy running off of screens to kind of catch and shoot, and as a weak side creator, right? You have someone else running the point that you draw and you kick and you let him attack a closeout. He's very, very good in that role. He's probably an all SEC kind of a guy in that role as your complementary piece. I don't think you want him to be your go-to guy.
No, he's not built for that.
I don't think you want him to do that because he's just limited. I do want to circle back on one thing though, because I want to finish up one point on Kentucky. I think we've had a lot of questions about Cal's coaching ability, right? We've criticized him here. We've criticized him on After Dark. We are not the only people that have criticized him. The answer is there now, right? We've seen something that has worked. There's proof of concept. It worked against Tennessee. It's worked throughout the entire season. And maybe now that there's some of it on tape, someone can find an answer and can find a way to adjust. But if we don't see significant minutes with the lineup that worked against Tennessee, in this game against Georgia, in this game against Texas A&M, and then the games coming up these next 2 weeks, then I think it's time to kind of say, like, Cal, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what are you not seeing here? Like, this works, right? You get those 2 shooters on the floor, you get your 5-star stud NBA lottery pick point guard, you got your athlete at the 4, and you got your national player year at the 5. Like, that lineup worked. Now let's see if he actually goes to it, because I'm not 100% convinced he's going to. He was forced to. He couldn't. The only reason he went to this lineup is because he had dudes out. That's not a like. That's worrying to me, guys. That's worrying to me.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes
he was feeling himself after that game, though, in the press conference. He was feeling himself. Go ahead, Fanta.
He had one moment in there, Fanta, where I don't mean to cut you off, but he had one more moment in there. He's like, "Yeah, we gave their guys the phone back in the morning. They were like." And what I have to do is I have to clip that out so there's no audio and it's just Cal doing this and then post that over something. So that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be the rest of my Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
taking away phones. Like, really? I mean, I get it. I get why he did it. And I don't know. It feels like something that was being done in 2015. Like, I
honestly don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. He puts those kids to bed. Get your kids some sleep. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at the concept of that, but that's not right.
But here's the other part. The bigger thing.
Taking away cell phones. What if mom's having a heart attack?
Then give the phone.
Then you call the coach.
Let the parents know, like, you have the phones. Like, there's ways that you can get in touch with them. The reason why I say that, Fanta, is because I think there is so much toxicity with these fan bases, and they have so much access to the players. Like, it's so hard. It's hard for me not to sit there and scroll through the comments and look at the ads and look at the mentions and look at what people say on YouTube, right? You're talking about 19-year-old kids, and they got to handle this criticism and go perform when you have the single most toxic environment you've ever had around the University of Kentucky basketball program in the social media era. So, like, I understand why he would do that. Just don't worry about what everyone else is saying. Focus on you, get your sleep, get up, get to talk to your teammates. Like, don't worry about the outside noise. And this is a way to make sure that they don't. Like, so I
will say this.
Understand.
I will say this, Rob, the Kentucky players handle the criticism better than you do, because I see you going back at like made up fake accounts all the time.
Oh, I love it. I love going at them. But it's like you have to that stuff doesn't bother me, right? Because most of it is just like, I can't believe you had this horrible take. And it's like, who the fuck cares? It's like me getting on a camera and making a joke. This is their livelihood. This is their chance to change their family. They're 19. I'm 37 years old. There's way worse things that have been said to me than what people are saying on Twitter, right?
That's right.
So, like, I'm fine. I can handle it. 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, like, it's a little bit different for them. And you also have the tidal wave of all of these people from BBN just coming at you at once. It's just, it can be a lot. And I'll tell you this, and then you can finish your point, Finn. I'm sorry, I cut you off again. I'm happy for those kids, because a lot of those kids came into this situation and weren't necessarily expecting to become the villains, but to become the middlemen between a fan base that wants the coach out. So I'm happy that they were able to have a moment where at least they could smile. Like, CJ Frederick's on our podcast network, and he was smiling after that game. That's literally the first time I've seen him smile on a game in probably a month and a half. So I'm happy that they had their moment, even if it came at the expense of Terrence Oglesby's feelings.
My feelings are fine. Me and Fanta were stuck calling a William and Mary in Wilmington game that had 69 free throw attempts.
Nice.
It was awesome.
That happened. That really happened. Yeah. I mean, I let's see how the next couple of weeks go down for this team. It was good to see them get a win on Saturday over Tennessee, because if they didn't win that game, then you're sitting here saying, well, let's see, this week they've got Georgia and Texas A&M, and they've got Vandy on the road. And Vandy, by the way, wow. I mean, they beat Arkansas. Arkansas is now in a tough way. Losers of 4 of their last 5 games, and they've taken a spill. And then you've got Kansas in Lexington at the end of the month. And so look, they've got some traps here. They've got some tough games. I mean, I don't think I'm still not convinced that this team can put it all together every single game. And
I'm with you.
The SEC. I think that they'll find a way. I think their name will get called on Selection Sunday, because I think they'll do enough. But I'm still not convinced that they're a team that we're going to see like North Carolina, like last year, when they go on that massive March Madness run. I don't think that's this Kentucky team. I think that first round game is going to be huge for Cal and Kentucky and everybody involved. It's going to be massive.
I agree with everything that you just said right there, but it's nice to see them trending in the right direction. We'll see what happens moving on. All right. Before we we'll talk about Alabama at the end. Before we do that, I want to talk about the top of the Big East. Fanta, you were at the Marquette and Xavier game yesterday, which, like, by the way, instant classic. Unbelievable game. In a moment where I had to watch UConn take a season-defining loss and Tottenham take a season-defining loss to their arch rival, like their arch nemesis. This is the Arsenal-Tottenham rivalry is probably more intense than like the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry. I had to sit there and watch that while UConn was losing. I was in a bad place at 2 p.m. yesterday afternoon. I'm in a good place now. I'm happy. But the only thing that kind of brought me out of it was watching.
You grew up in that soccer rivalry, didn't you? You grew up in that rivalry.
Hey, look, I'm in it now. I'm in it now. I've adopted a team. I'm in it now. Like, it just that's a different podcast for a different day. But Fanta, you were in the building. Marquette Xavier. For my money, look, all due respect, Providence fans are probably going to get mad at me for saying this, but like, there's no way that I can watch that game and say that those aren't the two best teams in the Big East right now. Just flat out. Like, they have so many weapons. They're so bought into what they do. They're so dangerous offensively. And yeah, maybe they can't really get stops and they're not going to guard anybody. But like, if you put up 85, you don't really have to be that good defensively to win. That's T.O.'s mindset.
I'll tell you what. If you are watching Xavier, your takeaway is this right now. It is the closest thing that college basketball touches in regards to NBA shot making. Guys, Xavier's shot making is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculously good. Like, they come down and within 8 seconds have a quality shot and it goes in. I think, first off, I think that right now there's an argument that Xavier's the most entertaining team in college basketball from a watch perspective.
I agree with that.
You know what's funny? The one team that I would have above them right now, Marquette.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. I don't know how much you guys were watching last Wednesday because there were a million games on, but Bill Raftery said this to me at halftime of yesterday's game. Like, man, that was a fun half. He's like, yeah, he goes, believe it or not, Xavier Creighton was better in terms of that halftime. And he's right. I mean, of course he's right. He's ref. But Xavier Creighton was an unbelievable game. That's my point on Xavier. Like, if you're looking to watch entertaining basketball right now, Xavier they go against all those college hoops haters, people who are like, oh, the sport possessions are so tough to watch and there's so many misses and I can't watch this. I'm an NBA fan. Yes. Okay, great. Enjoy your January and February of meaningless basketball. For Xavier, they just fill it up. Sule Boom has been a ridiculously good transfer addition. He's been one of the 3 to 5 best transfer ads by a team. Colby Jones has gotten better. Jack Nungy got to 50-50 balls yesterday and made things happen. And Jerome Hunter has really developed as a player. So for me, guys, like, I'm with you. Xavier's the best team in the Big East as we're talking right now. And Marquette is number 2. You know why? Marquette's got one of the best point guards in America. Over his last 5 games, Tyler Kolek has 54 assists to 11 turnovers.
That's insane.
54 assists to 11 turnovers. Omax Prosper.
One thing, I want to add one thing, the point of context for you. In the history of the Big East, right, Tyler Kolek is the only player to have a game with 15 assists and 0 turnovers. He did that on, who did they play? Was it Wednesday?
It was against Georgetown.
Yeah, it was against, who cares? 15 assists, 0 turnovers. You could be playing nobody. You got to figure at some point, like, a ball is going to go through somebody's hands. You're going to throw a pass, it's going to hit somebody in the foot. It's going to hit him in the face. The passer gets the turnover there.
He's been
15
great.
assists, 0 turnovers. He's ridiculous.
Great. Marquette's gotten better as the season's gone on. Cam Jones is such a good shot maker. I mean, Cam Jones is legit, and T.O. called that one. He had it.
Boy, T.O.
He's been fantastic.
Man.
I'll tell you, I mean,
Tennessee Cam.
It's just the offense that's being played is special, and we've talked about how Sean Miller reinvented some things that he does. talking with Sean yesterday, he said we've got a lot to be proud of and we got a lot to be happy with. And I saw Sean in the hallway. He was about to head out of the building yesterday at the Cintas Center, which, by the way, such a great building. Cintas Center is such a fun building when they've got it rolling. It's back. That atmosphere is back.
How many can you fit in there? Is it 11,000?
They fit about 11,000. Exactly. And it just gets loud. Their student section was so good yesterday.
Do they still have the judges?
The judges.
Wasn't it the Xavier judges? Who's that group of guys, a group of fans that sit on the baseline? Let me see. They had them there last time I was there.
Do they defend well enough to be legitimate national title contenders?
I don't know about legitimate national title contenders in that regard.
I got a number for you on it real quick, and then you can go, Fanta. The lowest heading into the tournament, the lowest that any team was ranked on KenPom's adjusted defensive efficiency metric since 2002 in the KenPom database was North Carolina in 2009. They were ranked 39th. In 2015, Duke entered the tournament ranked 37th on KenPom. Those are the two worst defensive teams that have won a national title. The worst offensive team that has won a national title was UConn in 2014. They were ranked 52nd in KenPom heading into the tournament. For the most part, like, you got to be kind of top 20 to 25 in both and top 10 in one to really be like a national title threat. Like, that's what the majority of the teams are, like second in offense, 22nd in defense, something like that. Those are the teams that win titles. Sorry, go ahead, Fanta.
Yeah, so Xavier's 91st right now. Their best defense is their offense, T.O. And because they can
there's something to be said there. Go ahead, Fanta. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Especially today.
Yeah.
In college basketball. I mean, they really – guys, I'm blown away. Like, watching that game live yesterday, you end up just – your eyebrows are raised at some of the shot making and some of the back and forth, and it was just punch for punch, shot for shot. Forgot to say Adam Kunkel's name. Kunkel's another guy who Xavier really needs, and he comes up big for them in different spots. And, man, Sean has developed Jerome Hunter to the point that, just being honest, real talk, if he has to sit Zach Fremantle for 5 minutes, he could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
having that bench be effective is so big for him.
Yeah, yesterday he had to do it. And so, tell you what, they've got DePaul Wednesday, then Georgetown at home. Here's how we segue the show. So I think that they will take a 13-game winning streak. They will have won 13 in a row, and they'll take that into Gamble Pavilion a week from Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that game at all. It kind of UConn soon has kind of made my life a lot easier because I was trying to figure out, like, how am I going to get up to do a live? We're doing this live show tomorrow from Manhattan for Kansas State. I was like, how am I going to get up there for UConn Xavier? This might be for first place in the Big East. I don't even have to worry about it now because UConn stinks.
Oh, come on.
They don't stink. They've lost for the past five, but there was I want to go back to your
2 weeks. They've stunk.
I want to go back to your point, Fanta, about you say sometimes your best defense is your offense, and there's some validity to that because if you're making shots, your defense is set. Mm-hmm. And Xavier's making shots at an incredible rate. You shoot 40% as a team on the year. Like, that's something to brag about. And when Kunkel, who's arguably your space and spot guy and defender, is your worst shooter in your starting lineup, he's shooting, what, 38, 9, 30, 40, something like that?
Yeah.
So, that's that's tough. Souley Boum has been tremendous, though.
Oh, my God.
His speed with the basketball, his ability to knock down shots. Like, keep in mind, too, like, some of your metrics defensively are going to be skewed towards in a negative light because if you're playing fast on offense, you're playing more possessions. More possessions equal more points. Things like that over the course of a game. So sometimes they'll be a little bit skewed, but they're fun to watch. Shit, are they fun to watch? And, man, is Shaka coaching his butt off up at Marquette, too.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that both of these guys kind of historically have been known as defensive coaches. I think that's fair, right? Like, Shaka was always like the havoc guy. We're going to force turnovers. We're going to win defensively and then figure it out offensively. Yeah. I think that Sean, when he was at Arizona, like, that was a knock on him, right? He's a great defensive coach. What's he going to bring offensively? Both of these guys have really opened it up. Sean, If you listen to him tell it, I don't know, maybe this is real, maybe it's not, maybe he just knows the pieces that he has here. But he said while he was working with us, he was able to just study other offenses more than he ever did when he had a team, and it kind of changed his view on what basketball could be. Shaka, I think, kind of saw the light, went out, hired Nevada Smith. Is it Nevada Smith?
That's right.
The guy out of the G League, to kind of revamp what they do offensively, kind of let him plan that. And both of them are terrific at, one, coming up with scouting reports and getting guys to buy into it, and then two, developing a culture where people are going to play for each other. And so I think it goes to show you don't have to have control over every single possession. You don't have to fight for every single inch. Sometimes you can just go out there and you can play basketball this way, and you can win a lot at the college level. Not every college coach buys that.
Last point I'll make, I don't know how they'll end up doing. I think that Xavier will find a way to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, but here's what I know. Whether it's in the Big East tournament in a round 3 with Marquette, or in a game with Creighton at the Garden or whatnot, like, I know one thing. Xavier in March is going to play some sort of insane game that just you come away saying, oh my gosh, that was so much fun to watch. Xavier will be a part of one of those types of games, aka, a la 2 Holloway against Kansas State in that double overtime NCAA tournament game that Gus Johnson went berserk on. Like, we're going to see Xavier play in one of those games. They are that entertaining. They're that high wire offensively. And man, you're right, T.O. I'll tell you this much. They're not a great defensive team. However, Sean Miller's a good enough coach that when he needs to get his guys together and they need to get a stop for at least on this 11-game winning streak, this team has found a way to get the stops they needed to.
Yep. The other thing I think is really important, especially when it comes to Xavier, is they have 2 of the best guards in the Big East at being able to create something for themselves in your boy Sule Boom and Colby Jones, who, according to T.O., can't do anything.
My boy Colby Jones.
Yeah, your boy Colby Jones. UConn has none of those guys. They don't have anyone right now that you can kind of, when things are going bad, you can give the ball to and say, go get us something, right? There's a lot of things that are going wrong with UConn right now. To me, the 2 things that stand out the most: one, Tristan Newton is not the guy that we thought he was going to be coming in. And if you compare what Tristan Newton is doing versus what Sule Boom is doing, you're seeing the difference. That, to me, that's the difference in those 2 teams. Xavier went out and got the point guard they needed. UConn went out and got a point guard that took 1 shot yesterday and got eaten up by Posh Alexander.
A lot of people get eaten up by Posh Alexander.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But when you you have to be able to you got to be able to win that matchup somehow, right? The other part of it is that, and this kind of goes to lacking a point guard, but they lack a level of composure, and they lack a level of, once things start going bad, they can't stop the spiral, right? They can't stop the snowball from going downhill. We saw it on the road at Providence in a game that was hard fought. Then Providence started doing some things right, and UConn just did not have anybody that could go stop the bleeding. I don't know if that's necessarily on-court leadership. I don't know if that's just kind of how they're wired, but once it started going bad, it went off the rails. Same thing happened at Xavier, right? Once it started going bad, it kind of went off the rails. Happened against St. John's last night at home when it's not supposed to happen at home. So I guess for either of you guys, am I seeing things wrong there? But 2, I don't even know if you can fix that. To me, it's not a talent thing, right? We know how talented this team is, how good they are defensively, but I don't know. I'm very, very worried about what this team is going to be moving forward, because I don't think that you can't just magically make a point guard appear. They don't have that guy. He's not on the roster.
Well, here's the thing. They don't have a great point guard. But part of it was, and we brought this up earlier in the season, I want to bring it up again, their other pieces have been so good in their roles that it didn't matter. You didn't need an elite point guard when you had so many different guys doing great things from the wings. Your point guard just had to realize to get them the ball and let them work. And they were also defending at a higher level than they did yesterday. I mean, St. John's had several guys in double figures and was getting scoring from different sources. Rafael Pinzone and Dylan Adewusu. stepping up. AJ Storr stepped up for them. I mean, and Joel Soriano has been the nation's leader in double doubles.
Man, he's been great this year.
Oh,
in spite of all they got going on, he's been great.
Yeah. That's a huge win for them. But to me, it's the attitude thing. That's what I'm more concerned about. I think that Connecticut is still on their best day, better suited to win an NCAA tournament game. Here's the thing. We have to adjust our expectation level, okay? We had them as a national title contender. They are not that. But if we had you as a national title contender at one point, you can't just say that now the season is decimated and destroyed. It blows up. That's not how it works.
Mm-mm.
So, no, that's not how a well-coached program works.
You said it, not me.
Well, I think he can adjust, and I think he will adjust. And, I think that Dan will figure things out with this team. I really do.
Yeah, look, I kind of do too, right? And I'm full disclosure, like 50% of this is me just being a fan that's kind of like losing their mind in the moment, right? But I think this is prove it time for him. This is the point where you kind of say, look, this is why I'm the coach at UConn. We're going through this spiral. We have these very obvious issues. This is what we're going to adjust. This is how we figure out what we're doing, right? And I think that moving forward here, we're going to find out a lot about, one, what Dan Hurley is, and two, what UConn is, right? You got at Seton Hall.
Could you imagine those freaking practices as a player?
Yes.
Where you just walk in and it is going to be hell on wheels for the next 2 to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That's part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So what?
To a point it is. And like, I also
that's
kind of
anywhere,
agree.
Fanta. Anywhere you play. That's not just for Dan Hurley. Anywhere you play, you lose 4 out of 5. That locker room is like you could hear crickets chirping in that thing. And then you go from the locker room where guys are somewhat pissed off every day because they still got to go to class. They still got to see other humans. It's not like you just show up to that and that's it. You got to see regular people. You got to see the civilians. They're looking at you funny, like you've done something wrong. And then you've got to go get your training. And then you got to walk in. It's like I remember we went on a skit at Clemson and we walk into the film room. We're just like, Oliver Purnell is just on one and you can just feel it. And it's just, you could cut the air with a knife. And it's just like, oh my God. And then I'm thinking about Dan Hurley. Like, those players are going through it right now.
Yeah. And the issue is that it's very easy to say you lost to Xavier, you lost to Providence, you lost at Marquette. Like, those are the 3 best teams in the conference. You lost to them on the road. A lot of teams are going to lose to those 3 teams on the road in those buildings. And then to come home against St. John's. And one thing here's another problem I have is what is UConn's identity this year, right? Are they going to be a great defensive team? Well, Andre Curbelo and Posh got literally anywhere they wanted. Rafael Pinzone did whatever he wanted to do, right? Their guards made UConn's guards look like I was playing defense out there, right? That might be a little bit of exaggeration. I don't care. They couldn't stop any penetration. 2, you want to be a team that runs through Adamas Sanogo? Well, you know what? If Adamas Sanogo is getting eaten up by Joel Soriano, that can't happen. If he's supposed to be the Big East player of the year and you run your offense through him, he has to win every single matchup that he has. He got beat by Joel Soriano last night. Okay. All right. Are you going to be a great rebounding team, which is what they've been in the past? Well, you know what? You can't get beat up on the offensive glass the way that they do. If you're going to win on toughness, if you're going to win on effort, you can't let other teams continually get more 50-50 balls than you. Like, so what is are you a 3-point shooting team? Space it out, chuck a bunch of threes? I don't think you have good enough shooters to be that. So like, what is the identity of this group at this point? That's one of the things that I think they've lost in this losing streak. And that's
Can I throw a little silver lining in after you're done?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So the silver lining.
I want all the silver linings. Give me more than one silver lining.
The silver lining for this is St. John's is to the Big East right now what Syracuse is to the ACC. Like, you have to completely change everything you do for one game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the silver lining. So really, if you look at UConn's other games, like Xavier loss away, okay, you're willing to take that. Providence loss away, the AMP is a ridiculous place to play. Marquette loss away. Okay. Like the St. John's was such a curveball. Like I'm not convinced this team's fallen off the tracks. I am convinced that the practices are miserable, and I am convinced that Seton Hall at the Rock is going to be gut check time. They need to win that game.
Yes.
This next one, they need to win.
Yes.
But to go along with what you're saying, like 4 out of 5, I get it. Those 3 away games, brutal. The Big East did not do them any favors. But the St. John's loss is such a curveball that it's like, it's like Virginia Tech. Like you go and you're starting to get some rhythm without one of your guys. You're losing close games, and then all of a sudden you have to change everything you do because of a certain style of play that Syracuse presents, and that's why Syracuse ends up being in the middle of the conference every year, despite talent level, because of that. So it's St. John's hasn't quite reached that level of where they're making the tournament, but it's not an easy adjustment. But Seton Hall, that's one they need to win. They need to win that game.
All right. A couple quick questions before we get out of here. I know Fanta's got to go. I want to make sure he gets to East Lansing on time. All right. So we each get 1 minute. You got to pick one of these teams. You're buying them, you're holding them, you're selling them. Arizona, UConn, and Arkansas. Fanta, we'll go to you first on this one.
I'm going to hold on Arizona because I've still seen Tommy Lloyd win too many games, and I think that right now Kirk Kriisa and Courtney Ramey got to have a kumbaya session and figure things out. Isn't it interesting that we're talking about these 3 teams, guard play? Mm-hmm. I'm selling Arkansas because the injuries, and as much as I think Eric Musselman's team, knowing Muss, his team will get on a bit of a surge. If Arkansas makes the second weekend of the NCAA tournament this year,
bless you, Tio.
Bless you.
Thank you.
With the Trayvon Brazil injury really killed this team.
Yeah.
And not having Nick Smith is tough. And they're not defending at the same level that they were. And I think teams have figured out what Arkansas is doing offensively. So I'm selling them. And I'm going to hold on UConn.
No, you got to buy. You got to buy one. You got to buy. I'm forcing you to buy one. You got to buy one, hold one, sell one.
Then I'm buying Arizona still because I think they're going to figure it out. And I think they're in a league that will allow them to figure it out. I do.
Yeah. Can I throw something in there with this whole Nick Smith thing?
Oh boy.
Like, is he hurt? Is he hurt?
Yeah, there is. He has had a knee issue. There's been a lingering knee issue. The question is, are you hurt versus are you injured? And that's a conversation that I'll save for after the recording is going.
What are you suggesting?
He's represented by Clutch, and a lot of people are.
Dude, all right. So that tells me a lot of what I need to hear.
A lot of people think he's been shut down because they want to protect.
Get that, stock. Guys. Then get out of the locker room.
He's been training in L.A.
Stay out there. Like, how's he training in L.A. and finishing his? I guess as long as you pass the first semester, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
right. So that kind of eliminates that. But like, stay out of the locker room. Like that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm selling at Arkansas. Trayvon Brazil. I thought that he was a massive piece because he was so switchable and provided some different looks that you could do defensively that I thought was really cool and advantageous for the Razorbacks. It's just they just can't click right now. I think that has a lot to do with it. And there's a lot of personalities, a lot of minds in there. If I'm buying a team, I'm going to buy. Keep me on UConn. I'm going to buy UConn. I think like yesterday's game or St. John's game. What was that? Yesterday or the day before? Goodness,
Sunday. Yesterday.
This weekend was a lot. Give me. I was too busy just making 10 threes in a church league game. It's not a big deal.
And getting your nails painted by your daughter.
Yeah, nails painted by my daughter at 10 a.m. Church league game, 10 threes, 2 p.m.
Did you have the nail polish on while you shot?
No, I took it off because I'm not comfortable enough in my own masculinity to make sure that. So I did take it off. But no, Arizona, I'm going to hold on. I just feel like UCLA in that league, they are really stinking good. I like UCLA a lot. But I'm going to go ahead and buy UConn because you're always supposed to buy low, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've lost 4 out of their last 5. I'm buying low. I'm going to be able to sell high whenever they make the Big East championship game.
Yep. All right. I would sell Arizona. I don't trust that their guards are going to be able to.
You're just being contrarian right now.
No, I'm selling on them because I think people still have them as like a national title contender, and I think they've been found out a little bit offensively. They led the nation heading into the Arizona State game in 2-point field goal percentage. They've been under 40% 2-point field goal percentage for the last 5 games. And if they're not elite offensively, I don't think they're good enough defensively to be able to do it. And I think people have kind of figured them out. I'm going to hold on Arkansas because if you look at the last 2 years, there's always a swoon for the Razorbacks in January. They lost 4 out of 5. 2 years ago, made the Elite Eight. They lost 5 out of 6 last year, made the Elite Eight. There's always a swoon, but then must figure something out. There's still 3 pros on that roster. I'm just going to hold and say, you know what? We'll see. Must does this. People jump off the bandwagon. I'm going to hold. I'm not going to sell them yet. And I'm buying UConn. There's no reason why. I'm just not. I can't sell my team.
You buy low.
You
always buy low.
My team.
You always buy low.
I'm just going to go watch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go watch the replay of the Alabama game. I'm going to watch those highlights and say that they're still that good. All right. Last one.
Any entrepreneur will ever tell you it's not where you sell, it's where you bought to begin with.
Yep.
So hey, by the way, sorry to throw a huge curveball, but I get emails from Georgia's SID, Mike Mobley. I didn't realize Georgia's 3-1 in league. And like Mike White, this is a team that won 6 games.
He was my toast on Saturday night. Thanks for not watching the show.
Oh my God, dude, they won 6 games last year.
He's done a great job.
He's done a great job. Build the man a statue. I said this when I saw him this summer.
Boy.
Build the man a statue in Georgia outside the basketball complex. Or you know what, for that matter, get them their own weight room, Georgia. You've got a guy who can run things.
Yes,
they don't have their own weight room. They got to share it with gymnastics. Get them a weight room. What are we doing? Georgia, get it together. Mike White, people at Florida got mad at him. He made the tournament, every year he was freaking there? Now he's going to go to Georgia. He's going to win 23, 24 games a year, and then they're going to build him a statue. Big difference in expectations. He's a hell of a coach.
The SEC's got great coaches. It's got great coaches. And while we have a moment on this pod before things finish up, I want to unveil something to you guys.
Oh boy. Keep it. Yeah, keep it tucked away there, Fanta.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Are you pulling out your Torvik?
Yeah, I'm pulling out my Torvik. I put together the weekly top 15 power rankings for Fox. So last night I pull everything out, and I'm like, yeah, right. Exactly. I took all my clothes off. So I'm looking at. I'm just kidding.
Did you shit after you did?
Yeah. I'm looking at everything that happened over the weekend. Okay. And I'm just like, last Monday I had Houston at number 1, and then I'm looking at Houston's game against South Florida, and I'm like, okay, they won the game, but. And I'm like, are they really the best team in the country? Well, I think that they could be. They could be on a given day. And I'm looking at Kansas, and I'm like, yeah, they could be there. Now, they have had a couple of very, very close games now in Fieldhouse. One would argue if the game was at that team's venue, would it go differently? Okay, but they've won. They've won. Not going to fault teams for winning. But how you win's important. And so then I pulled up Alabama. They have won their 5 SEC games by a combined 114 points. At the moment, in my power rankings, I don't care who yells at me. I don't care who gets mad at me. Alabama's number 1.
I'm with you.
You're with me.
I'm with you.
And I turned to T.O. on Saturday. I said, T.O., Alabama could win it all. And you said to me, could win it all. I said, I really think they could win it all.
That'd be selfish of the
to me. There's 3 reasons why.
It gives me Carmelo Syracuse vibes. It gives me Carmelo Syracuse vibes. Go on.
I think that they're better than that because that Carmelo team was a 3 seed. This team I think is going to 100% be a 1 seed for 3 reasons. 1, they are a top 10 defense. You don't score in the paint against them. Charles Bediako erases everything.
Man, he has developed, hasn't he? God, he's been good.
Noah Clowney's the real deal. Brandon Miller will guard. 2, Mark Sears and Jaden Bradley are one of the best backcourts in college basketball. You have 2 basically point guards, right? Sears is kind of playing off the ball a little bit more as a secondary option. That's what you need to win a title. And 3, you're going to have the most dangerous player on the floor every single game that you play, pretty much. Yeah. Outside of maybe like 2 or 3. because Brandon Miller, like running off of screens, is just absolutely lethal. So you're gonna have the best player on the floor. You have 2 point guards. You go back and you look Dayton all the way back to like Tyler Hansborough's 2019. John Shire and Nolan Smith in 2010 won it. It was Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier in 2011. 2013, Russ Smith, Peyton Siva. 2014, Shabazz Napier, Ryan Boatwright. 2015, Tyus Jones, Quicker. You go all the way down. All those teams that won it had 2 point guards. They got 2 point guards. They got the best player on the floor. They guard.
And they also fit that top 20 offense defense thing. Go ahead, Fanta.
They're going to be favored in every remaining SEC game except maybe their road game at Tennessee. That's it. If you look at their SEC schedule, the remainder of it, they're going to be favored in pretty much every game, maybe one that they're not. Like, they're having an incredible year. And to your point, like when you combine that defensive rim protection, and I'm amazed by the poise of the freshman class to be able to start 3 freshmen and play with just how composed they are. Mark Sears was an invaluable transfer ad. And guys, they have the best freshman in the country. And I'll tell you what, he's making a run at best player in the country.
Yeah, he's up there. Let me ask you guys this: where would you put
best player in America?
Where? So you mentioned Houston.
You
mentioned
Kansas.
I
put Kansas 2 and Houston 3 this week.
Okay, then you you need to have UCLA up there somewhere, right?
I put Purdue 4 and UCLA 5.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if we can assume that Purdue is going to get 13 points and 5.5 assists from Braden Smith every game here on out, and they're going to get 17 points a night and 2 assists a night from Fletcher Lawyer, and combined, those guys are going to shoot over 40% from 3, which is what they've done the last 3 games. Like, to me, if we know that that's what we're getting from those guys, like, I still think Alabama's the best team in the country. I don't know where, like, Purdue being number 2, like, it's just, they are really, really fucking good when those guys are playing the way that they're playing.
Yes.
They're really, really good. And I feel like we kind of forget about them a little bit because, we were all into them early in the year and they really haven't had a huge win since.
Well,
I mean,
hey, they got an opportunity as we're doing this pod on Monday afternoon into evening. They're going to have the nation watching. A lot of people are off work. And they play 2:30. It is the lone game of the day to really watch in college basketball.
All right, let's lock it in right now. You guys got to make a pick. All right. I'm going to bring up, I don't have the line in front of me. People are going to be listening to this after it happens. So that's a lot of pressure. You're either going to sound like a genius or you're going to sound like an idiot. Purdue is at East Lansing. Purdue is laying 3.5 points. T.O., lock it in. Make a prediction. You got to bet the house on
Purdue is laying 3.5 points. That means they're favored or they're
Purdue minus 3.5.
Oh. See, I don't gamble all that much. So the lingo I need to catch up with. I would pick Michigan State, man. I'm telling you, I've stayed on that train for a while. Those guys play freaking hard. They got a lot of bodies they could throw at people. And older guards versus younger guards. I think I would pick Michigan State in the playing against the I-Zone. That place is going to be a lituation there in East Lansing. I'm jealous of you, Fanta.
Sparty, riding Tom Izzo's crew. I like him. Malik Hall has to play his tail off in this game. Purdue's got the freshman backcourt. Michigan State's got a veteran one. Michigan State's told us that they believe they got the best backcourt in the Big Ten. Show it. You're at home. I like Tom Izzo's group.
My only concern is whether or not Malik Hall plays. He looked like he might have aggravated that foot injury against Illinois. There's no update on him. We haven't seen anything come out of Michigan State yet. If I was Michigan State, I wouldn't say anything until the last minute that I possibly could. But if Malik Hall plays, I tend to lean towards Tom Izzo plus the points at home.
Yes. That's the lean.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lean. But if Purdue wins, it wouldn't surprise any of us. But that's the lean. The lean is on Breslin Center being wild. And Michigan State, who was in, by the way, Friday night in college hoops was very, very overlooked maybe going in. It did not disappoint. I'm telling you what, we need more Friday night games in the sport. The conferences who are cashing in on these Friday night games are winning because
VCU, man, shout out to VCU. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I cannot believe VCU did. I'm still stunned at the result of that game. I was texting Terrence. I said, Terrence, I have never seen a team win a game like this ever. Dayton was up by 4 with 28 seconds left at home.
With the ball.
They turned the ball over
with the
3
ball.
times in 10 seconds. I have never seen that in a game. Never.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Friday night games are fun. And my point was, Michigan State, if you watched the game, you would have been sitting there 30 minutes in the game being like, yeah, Michigan State's going to win this game. And they lost. They unraveled.
And Coleman Hawkins woke up, man. And then Coleman Hawkins woke up. He was awesome in like the last 6 minutes of that game. Coleman Hawkins, like, I don't understand. Like, there's no in between with him. He either looks like he's shaving points or he looks like he is the second coming of LeBron James. Like, there's no in between. He's either horrible, right? As Robbie Hummel would put it, he can only perform when he is playing against a directional school, or he looks like a guy that should have been out of college basketball and into the first round 2 years ago. Like, it drives me insane. I don't know.
I love Dane Danger too. I love Dane Danger, and Matthew Meyer had 6 blocks against Michigan State.
Terrence Shannon got it going again. Like, I'm back in on Illinois. I'm back in on the Illinois is good again bandwagon. So listen, Fanta, I know you got to drive, so I'm going to let you drive for Terrence Oglesby, for John Fanta. This has been the DTF podcast. Check out the merch store. Subscribe to the Daily. You already know that by now if you're listening to this podcast. So we will see you guys again next Monday.